From the High Adventure Broadcasting Network, this is Middle East Insight, a weekly in-depth look at some of the top stories making news here in the Middle East.
For Middle East Insight, I'm Jan Carnes.
And I'm Joe Lear. This week on Middle East Insight, we're going to be looking at some of the latest political winds blowing in Lebanon in the direction of Damascus. The last 2 months since the death of Phalangist Party founder, President Pierre Gemayel, have seen a number of political figures disappear from the scene, and their replacement by men that could be described as more amenable to the Syrian point of view.
On Tuesday of last week, the Lebanese parliament met for the first time since June 12th to elect a new speaker. The 47-year-old deputy from Syrian-occupied Baalbek was elected speaker, defeating the older Kamal Assad, deputy from Taiba here in South Lebanon, by a vote of 41 to 28. There were 4 blank votes, and 2 were declared invalid.
The position of Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament is reserved for a Shiite Muslim under the Constitution, following the same arrangements that call for Maronite President and a Sunni Prime Minister. Kamal Assad held the office of Speaker for 14 years, managing to get re-elected every 2 years since 1970.
However, Kamal Assad made a big mistake in the eyes of the Syrians. He supported the May 17, 1983 agreement between Israel and Lebanon that was finally abrogated by President Gemayel in March under Syrian pressure. Kamal Assad went so far at the time as to caution President Gemayel against abrogating the accords. That is why pro-Damascus forces were rallied to vote against Kamal Assad, and pressure was even brought to bear on other elements to vote for Hussein Husseini. A few days before the election, the pro-Syrian Beirut daily Ashar predicted that Assad would be defeated and called him the last symbol of the Israeli era in Lebanon.
Kamal Assad had been out of favor for some time because of his stand on the May 17th troop withdrawal agreement. In spite of his important political post, he was not invited to participate in the Geneva and Lausanne conferences early this year, and was not consulted in the talks surrounding the formation of the new cabinet. Political observers stated that Assad's absence from the decision-making meeting was due to Damascus's displeasure over his continued support for the May 17th agreement with Israel, even after its abrogation, and his implied criticism of Syria. Kamal Assad's relations with Syria were cool. He had not even been to Damascus in a number of years.
On the other hand, Hussein Husseini's relationship with Damascus is seen as excellent. In his election speech immediately after the results were announced by Camille Chamoun, Husseini delivered a blistering attack on Israel, and he called on all Lebanese to join together in expulsing what he described as the aggressive and expansionist state of Israel. Husseini spoke of liberation from Israeli oppression in his speech, but didn't mention a word of Syria's occupation of 2/3 of the country. As a matter of fact, Husseini referred to the special role of Damascus in Lebanon. He said Syria spared no effort and missed no opportunity to help Lebanon. He mentioned the special common interests of Syria and Lebanon and spoke of the role of Lebanon in the Arab world.
The leftist leaders in Lebanon, including Walid Jumblat and Nabi Berri, exerted all their influence in getting Hussein Husseini elected. His election was greeted in West Beirut with great rejoicing, as gunfire echoed through the streets fired from the weapons of jubilant militiamen. Husseini served for 2 years as the leader of the Amal movement following the disappearance and probable murder of its founder, the Imam Musa Sadr, in Libya in 1978.
The election of Hussein Husseini as Speaker of the Parliament had repercussions in the most unlikely of places, the Phalangist Party. On the day following the election, Christian deputies Edmond Rizk and Louis Abu Sharaf were expelled from the Phalangist Party after a late-night meeting of the Political Bureau. Abu Sharaf, the deputy from the Christian heartland area of Kisrwan, served in high Phalangist circles for over 40 years and had been the party's political orator for the past 25 years. Rizik, representing the Jazin area, had served in the Phalangist political bureau for 20 years. Their big mistake was to vote for Kamal Assad in the election for Speaker. Abu Sharaf voted for Assad because, in his estimation, it was in the public interest to have the former speaker re-elected. Rizik stated that he voted for Kamal Assad because he disagreed with the political bureau's decision to back Husseini taken 24 hours earlier.
Phalangist members of the Lebanese parliament were given clear instructions by the political bureau to support Husseini. When Abu Sharif and Rizik voted for Kamal Assad, they were breaking with the directives handed down to them. Explaining the disciplinary action taken against them, one Phalangist official from the political bureau said, "The bureau was forced to take this decision in view of the open violation of a clear directive handed down by the party."
The Lebanese forces didn't automatically go along with Husseini's election, though. The Voice of Free Lebanon, which is operated by the Lebanese forces, sarcastically referred to the election of Hussein Husseini as an appointment in view of the Syrian pressure to have him elected.
These expulsions from the Phalangist party are directly related to other recent major developments within the party. After the death of Pierre Gemayel, Eli Karama was appointed to replace him as the head of the party. Eli Karama took a stand against those who, in his words, were responsible for undisciplined activities within the party.
A few weeks later, there was a shakeup in the leadership of the Lebanese forces militia. Dr. Fouad Abu Nader was elected commander of the Lebanese forces, replacing the more anti-Syrian Fadi Frem. It is interesting to note that Abu Nader is considered a more disciplined and moderate Phalangist than Frem. Abu Nader has never criticized Syria the way Fadi Frem did. Abu Nader was elected in a secret ballot by an 8-man military council made up of representatives from the 4 main parties making up the Lebanese forces. The new party leader Eli Karame said of Abu Nader, "We welcome the new commander and wish him luck in his post."
Jan, tying into what you're saying, Abu Nader is considered unlikely by most sources to press for the cantonization of Lebanon by the various groups. In opposition to President Gemayel's vision for reconciliation of the various groups under a strong centralized government, Fadi Frem was known to be an avid supporter of the cantonization idea.
Joe, that's why the election of Abu Nader as head of the Lebanese forces was seen as a personal victory for President Gemayel over those elements within the Lebanese forces who advocated opposition to Damascus. Under the new leadership at Karantina, the Phalangist headquarters near Beirut, the party seems to be moving in a tilt towards Damascus. Pragmatically speaking, Joe, Syria has come out as the dominant force in Lebanon, and undoubtedly many people would take to heart the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. However, it's a dangerous game.
With the recent changes in the Phalangist party towards Syria, the Beirut government is taking the opportunity to exploit the situation, Jan. Following Monday's special cabinet meeting, it was announced that the government will move to put an end to the Lebanese forces' control of dock number 5 at Beirut port. The right-wing Christian militias have been taking lucrative customs into their own coffers that should have gone to the national treasury. If the government succeeds in its attempt, it will be a blow to the independent-minded elements within the Lebanese forces.
It's also worth mentioning that some Phalangist officials have spoken of threats by Damascus and the leftists against the Christian community. One official hinted that the Syrians had issued warnings that there would be massive bombardments of Christian areas if the Phalangists didn't fall into line. Such words would understandably intimidate some of the Phalangist leaders.
A week before the elections for Parliament Speaker, Druze leader Walid Jumblat announced the formation of a Syrian-backed National Democratic Front to oppose, in his words, all forms of partition, federalism, cantonization, and sectarian fragmentation of Lebanon. The National Democratic Front brought together the mainly Druze Progressive Socialist Party, the Lebanese Communist Party, the Arab Democratic Party, and the Nasserite Arab Socialist Union. The front is calling for the implementing of reforms to achieve equal power sharing between Muslims and Christians, and to actively support resistance operations in the south against the Israelis, and to break the link between Israel and what Jumblatt called the fascist forces in Lebanon, meaning the Phalangists. The National Democratic Front is also calling for an end to U.S. imperialism and schemes in Lebanon.
Just tilting by the Phalanges towards Damascus is not going to be enough, though. With the continued impasse in the cabinet over political reforms, the leaders of the new National Democratic Front plus the Amal movement have warned that civil war will break out again if progress towards political reform is not forthcoming. One leader of the Syrian-backed front told a crowd at a Communist Party rally this past week that the NDF Amal forces are capable of routing the Lebanese forces and imposing a military solution in Lebanon. Another leader claimed that the leftist and Muslim forces had been well supplied with arms from Moscow. Assem Kanso, the head of the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party, stated that we want to put an end to the Lebanese tragedy. We are allowing a last chance for a political solution, Kanso warned the rightist Christians. Otherwise, the NDF, he continued, and Amal is able to impose a military solution and deliver the coup de grace, the final blow to the fascist projects of the right-wing Christians and Zionists.
In other words, Jan, the leftist forces are demanding immediate political reforms, and that the Lebanese forces join them politically in an anti-Israeli front, or else.
That's what it comes down to, Joe. And of course, Damascus is encouraging all efforts to put pressure on the right-wing Christians to join them, or at least to acquiesce to the Syrian pressure to make Lebanon a front-line state in the greater Arab-Israeli conflict under Syrian hegemony. In the eyes of Syria, a Damascus-oriented anti-Israel Lebanon that is dependent on Syria is what Damascus considers Lebanon's best interest. Former Prime Minister Taqiyuddin Saul aptly put it this week in an interview with the Beirut Weekly Monday Morning when he said, "Syria has always worked for the benefit of Lebanon. Its ultimate aim is to establish permanent security in our country, and it is Syria which initiated the successful Geneva Conference. Moreover, Lebanese leaders know they can always rely on Damascus to solve their problems," Saul said. The only problem with the permanent security that Syria is trying to establish is that it would be a Pax Syriana, in other words, a Syrian empire, and Lebanese leaders can depend on Damascus solving their problems just so long as the solutions work to the advantage of Damascus.
Jan, it ties in with the Syrian concept of a greater Syria. The leadership in Damascus feels that they have an inalienable right to determine the future of Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. PLO leader Yasser Arafat recognized the Syrian concept of a greater Syria this past week when he commented, "I have always praised the position of Syria, and I always will. Syria, to me, is Damascus. It is the northern part of Palestine, and Palestine is the southern part of Syria." Lebanon just as readily fits into the same concept, Jan.
Joe, I believe we can say in conclusion that Syria wants all of the factions in Lebanon to be dependent on Damascus because that's how the Alawite regime can ensure its dominance in Lebanon. If any of the factions becomes too strong, then they no longer need Syrian protection, so that Damascus usually endeavors to prevent the annihilation of any sect or faction, but at the same time demands a falling into line by all towards what their concept of Lebanon should be. That's the option that many in Lebanon are facing today. It must be realized that in return for Syrian protection, a very high price will be demanded by Damascus. For Middle East Insights, I'm Jan Carnes with Joe Lear.
has been Middle East Insight. Join us weekly as we analyze the leading news stories affecting current events throughout the Middle East. This has been a public affairs program from the High Adventure Broadcasting Network.
The music you want most on the Voice of Hope.
Thou hast searched me and known me, oh my God. You know my downsitting, mine uprising. You understand my thoughts from far off. You are acquainted with all my ways, for there is not a word in my mouth, but you know it already. Where can I flee from thy presence? Nowhere, my God. Thy spirit is always around me, and thy love surrounding me. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there you will be. You have beset me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such love it is too wonderful for me. I cannot understand it. So I seek to hide in darkness, even there will shine thy light, and thy hand will lead me, and thy